For liquid damage repairs, this is probably the most common repair besides replacing the digitizer and broken glass. Couple of things with water damage or liquid damage. You can have direct contact either through spilling something on the board or the phone, putting it through the washing machine, baby slobber, things like that. Or you can have indirect contact mainly from steam in a bathroom while you're taking a shower. A lot of people keep the phone on the counter, and over time, steam can get in here and actually cause damage to the board, just like spilling something on it. Couple of things can happen. You could either have an isolated issue, maybe just the backlight doesn't work or the touch doesn't work, or you could have any and everything going on with your phone. Maybe it works, it shuts off, the SIM doesn't read, the microphone doesn't work. A whole number of things can actually happen. So it could be one thing or it could be everything. You'd want to really see if it's worth it to go ahead and do a water damage cleaning. Obviously, if the phone's not powering on at all, then it is probably worth it. But if it's just one little thing that's not working and it's something you can live with, it may be better to not take it apart, because what can actually happen is when you take the phone apart, you can make things worse. Like I said, maybe one thing wasn't working, but once you take it apart and actually, unplug the cables off of these plugs, it may make something worse. Because what typically happens is you get corrosion on the board, and you can kind of see it here. But if it corrodes the plugs, it can create little bridges between your plug on the board and your cable. And it may work still with the plug corroded. Well, once you break that little bridge of corrosion or clean the plug, you can actually make something not work that was working before. So really kind of think about it. Is it worth it to fix this? Now, we'll show you here a couple of indicators, not only visual indicators on the phone, but indicators outside of the phone. Here's an iPhone 4, and underneath the charging port, you can see there's a little sticker. It's typically white. And here's the back side of it. That little sticker right there, once it gets wet, this red will bleed through and it'll show on the inside here. So if you looked in there and saw that it was red, then you know that that sticker got wet. Same thing up here. There's another sticker on the underside of this headset connector. And if you look down inside of here, you can see a little white sticker or a little red sticker, depending on if it got wet or not. So that's an indicator just from outside of the phone, looking to see if it's damaged or not. The other thing is you can actually have the board itself. There are stickers as well on the board, and kind of show you that here. Couple of stickers on these iPhones, and they both are red, so I know that these have both been in contact with some type of liquid. So you have those stickers, and then you have the visual indicator as well, the corrosion and burnt components on the board. I'll show you here the close-up these two boards, and you'll notice that when the water dries, it actually turns into kind of a powder, or you can get syrup, or if the water will actually start to corrode the metal, it can burn the plugs. It can do a whole number of things. So you could have different degrees of damage to the board. It really all depends on how long the water or liquid stayed on the phone, and if the phone was still working, because with the battery on and sending a current through the phone, it'll obviously short the board out faster than if it's off. So go back to the overhead, and one other thing that I'll want to show you, and this kind of goes for all of the phones. It really doesn't matter which iPhone you have, but it's actually taking these caps off. Some of the caps can come off, some of them can't. So I'll show you on the close-up again here. And you'll notice between these two caps is this cap is actually welded on. There's no way you can take it off. And you notice this one has all these little latches, all these little indents. And each one of those indents is it's basically a lock. So you can kind of work your way down, popping these little locks off, these little caps, to lift this shield off to expose the board underneath. This one obviously you can't because the board or this shield is welded on. I'll just flip it over and I'll show you the underside as well. Same idea. You see all these little caps right here? So you know that these you are able to take off. So depending on what phone you have, just look and see if the caps look like this or if they look like that. If they look like that, then you know you can't take them off. But if they're like that, then you can pop them off. And I'll kind of demonstrate here with a 3GS. You'll have two shields on here. And what you'll want to be careful of when you're taking these shields off is the actual board itself. You don't want to damage the board, and you want to be mindful of all the little components, especially when you take these shields off too, because you have all these little pieces under the phone. So we'll kind of get here, and you can just kind of start with one cap, and I'll go back to the close-up and show you in kind of detail. So you kind of start with one and just work your way down, and as you lift, you just kind of lift up, and then you should be able to just kind of keep lifting and just work your way down. Now again, be careful of all the components. You don't want to damage or break anything off. But once you get all this off, you should be able to lift it and kind of lift it up high enough. Whoop, and it should pop that off. So that's how you take those shields off, and then to put it back on, you want to just make sure you line it up. It's kind of like a little puzzle. Just make sure everything fits right. You set it on there, and then just press the edge down, and it should get all those little caps back in order. The other thing you want to make sure that you check is if your board has damage to it, you want to inspect and make sure that your plugs aren't damaged as well. Because what will happen, like I was talking about with the little bridges, is the corrosion can actually affect your plug as well. And you may get this 100% clean, but the plug on the charging cable is damaged. And so you go to put it all back together and it still doesn't work. So you just want to make sure that you do check all the plugs of the affected areas before you put everything back together and test it. So again, like I said, inspect the board, look for any corrosion or burnt components. You want to look at the parts and plugs, the cables, etc., just to see if those are damaged as well. And if they are, obviously replace them. Now, if your phone has light corrosion, you can spot clean it with rubbing alcohol and a toothbrush. That should take care of any light corrosion on the board. You'll want to let it air dry. It shouldn't take too long, but get it clean enough. You don't want to drench it in alcohol, but you want to get it enough to where you'll be able to clean these components. And the other thing is you don't want to push so hard with this bristle that you could potentially damage any parts of the board. So you just want to kind of light clean and just work it around the board and all the components on the board to clean whatever area is affected. Once it dries, inspect it. just check to make sure that everything looks clean and it looks good. If it's still dirty, re-clean the areas that are still damaged, and then let it dry and check it again. Put it back in the phone, and if it doesn't work, then watch our other chapter on water damage, and if it does work, then you should be good to go.